Good Thirsty Thursday to all of you watching. I am Emerson Lazio. You are watching The Sweat presented by DraftKings. So we got a lot coming up here for you. Who to stuff inside your hockey lineups, who to build your NBA lineups around. Lots of DK Sportsbook talk in the NFL. Also, I'd like to take this time and wish producer Drew's cat, Will Fork, a happy 10th birthday. She is blind and has bad hips, but is overcoming the adversity and continuing to move forward in life. So shout out to her. Let's start now in the NFL. We have our panel. Good morning to DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Pierce Dietrich. First-timer Alan Seslowsky of RotoWire. Hello, everybody. Good to have you here. Ravens-Dolphins will get the Week 10 party started, talking showdown picks and sportsbook plays. Who's steering the ship for you at captain, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like you have to go with the Ravens guys here. I mean, they've got a 27-point implied team total. The nice thing about this game is we have like a really small sort of market share here to pick from Baltimore. I'm not so interested in Marquise Brown in this game. I know he's coming in hot. He's got like 24 targets over his last two games. But this does feel like a spot where I'm just not sure how much, fight back we're going to get from the Miami Dolphins, regardless of who starts at quarterback. I think Devonta Freeman at 9,900 is a very good value option. It's a player who's now playing basically 60% of the snaps, about 15 touches last week. I just don't see that going down because he's playing well. He's playing clearly the best of any of the Ravens running backs. He's got a weaker rush defense here, in the Miami Dolphins. We're basically bad at everything on defense this year anyways. And again, we've got a 27-point implied team total. If it's not Marquise Brown, all these touchdowns are getting scored on the ground or by the defense. And I think Devonta Freeman definitely has a chance to pay off this salary. Obviously gives you a ton of flexibility too. So I'm going to make Devonta Freeman my captain's pick.
Yeah, he gets the next most rushing volume after Jackson. Should stay busy, as you mentioned. Pierce, what about you, man? 1.5 times the salary, but 1.5 times the points.
Hear me out. Mac Hollins. I disagree that the Ravens are going to be the team to play here. I like the Dolphins side of this. We know that they pass more than any other team in football. The way that Jeff says that this game is going to play out, it seems like they're going to pass even more than they normally pass. So it seems like the value and the upside is going to come from the Dolphins side of the football field. And the Ravens, not that good in the secondary this season. They're really not that good, period. If you look through some of these games, I think they're quite overrated, and the Dolphins are going to be able to hang in there. Hollins increased the snap count last week, and his routes run went up to 41, caught 3 of his 6 targets. Now that Devontae Parker is on the IR, he's towards the top of the league in terms of ADOT with 14-yard depths of reception. And that's a small sample size, but he is running deeper routes. The Ravens have allowed 12 passes of 20 yards or longer. That's the most in the NFL. There's definitely that big play upside. I would love to play Lamar Jackson if you can afford him. But if you take Hollins, you can definitely get plenty of Ravens in your utility spots.
All right. I was today years old when I realized that Mac Hollins is an NFL player. Alan, how about you, dude?
When they said that Devonta Freeman was going to be the captain, I had to check my watch and make sure it wasn't 2015. I can't believe we're seeing guys like this be fantasy relevant again. I'm on the Dolphins side as well. One of my favorite DraftKings strategies is to take the backup running back and put him in the captain slot. I'm likely to lose, but what happens if there's an early injury or they start to give Salvon Ahmed more touches? Look what happened to Chase Edmonds in the Cardinals game last week. First, second, third play goes out. James Conner's not a backup, obviously, but he went nuclear. That's what I'm doing in my DraftKings lineup. I'm putting in Salvon Ahmed and, just throwing a dart. It's not what's likely to happen, but it's what's the payoff if it does happen. And the likely is you're going to become a millionaire.
Okay, yeah, I like that. A great tease, by the way, too. There is a Millie Maker lineup, and lineups lock in 9 hours and 15 minutes here on DraftKings. Only $20 to enter. Let's go with some value. Hook me up, Pierce. It sounded like your first guy is going to provide you some there.
You can play Mac Hollins, or you can go through the cheap receiver on the other side, Rashad Bateman. We've been attacking the Dolphins secondary all season long. Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, not having a very good season because they haven't been healthy. They haven't practiced all season. Howard's got a 55 PFF grade. Byron Jones is a 64 PFF grade. This is definitely a spot that you can attack. Since Bateman's been back, his routes run have increased every single week. He's become a bigger part of the offense. There is a concern, though, with Sammy Watkins coming back that might hurt his volume, but that could also help out. I mean, if you look at this receiving core with Brown and Watkins, Bateman, and Mark Andrews, I mean, Bateman's going to be the last guy to receive any attention at all, and so the volume could be there. He should get plenty of opportunities against a weak defense, and if he gets a touchdown, then you're good to go.
All right, Alan, how about some value, man? Who are you looking at?
I don't mean to repeat myself, but Salvador Ahmed's only $800. Now, when Pierce said Matt Collins, he thought he was going to have the trashiest play on the slate. I'm sorry to one up you there, but no, the player that if you're going to want to go a little bit more chalky, look with Jalen Waddle from a target perspective, man. You know, the price is right on there. He's getting double-digit targets, 8-9 targets every single game. He's literally the only game in town other than the tight end Mike Gesicki. So I like figuring out how to put Jalen Waddle in the lineup. He's probably going to get loose for one. I still like him as one of the best rookie receivers, and then certainly he's a top 25 receiver already in the NFL. I'm trying to stick him in every single lineup tonight.
Okay, Ulrich, what about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that like Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki both looking like good like upper tier values just because the target tree is going to be so condensed for Miami. But one guy who's also playing a lot more than people realize, and again, we got Devontae Parker out. I mean, Pierce likes this guy, Matt Collins, who's got like 10 catches in his last 30 games. But what about Durham Smith? I mean, he's playing over 60% of the snaps. He's at least getting targets, Pierce, all season, not just for like one game, too. The one thing that Baltimore Ravens do, they do not defend the tight end position. They basically just pretend like it doesn't exist. This guy's 2,700. I do like some of these Dolphins receivers. I almost think a guy like Gesicki is captain viable too. But, you know, Smith could easily get the touchdown here. And I think this is what you have to do. You have to target the cheaper wide receivers in this game. I do like Pierce's call there on Bateman. I'd much rather play him over Watkins. But, like, if you're looking for a really cheap play, I think Smith is the guy you got to look to today.
All right, let's go over to the sportsbook side of this matchup, guys. Which player prop do you like for tonight? Alan?
Oh, as far as a player prop, yep. I'm going to go with Gesicki over 4.5 receptions. He is, Jeff said before that the target distribution is so condensed. I mean, he is, I think, a lock to smash over 4.5. I would say even closer to 10 receptions or 10 targets tonight. So that's the easy one for me that popped off the board. I'm going to put a few earned shekels on that play tonight.
All right, good stuff. Jeff?
Yeah, I really like that Gesicki prop too. But I have another one I like. Devontae Freeman over 10.5 rush attempts. I mean, I'm really surprised to see this so low. We have a team here who are over touchdown favorites. Again, like, you know, what they're not giving Tyson Williams the ball. I know Lamar Jackson could come in here and take like 14 carries, but if they get up, they're really just going to try and pound Devontae Freeman in and save Jackson. So this is just ridiculously low to me. This player had 13 carries in his last game. Again, his snap count is going up. He's playing clearly the best. And we only have to get to 11 carries against Miami, and it's plus 100. Yeah, I love taking the over on Devontae Freeman's rush attempts here.
Which player prop you targeting tonight, Pierce?
Alan is fitting right in here, giving us
totally.
The dumpster tier value plays. And I also like Gesicki. I'm going to take the over 54.5 receiving yards for him. Baltimore's allowed the third most points to tight ends in fantasy this season. We know Miami passes more than anyone else. The game script says that they're going to pass a lot. And Gesicki is top 4 in receptions, receiving yards, and targets. So the volume is going to be there. And hey, and if you're worried, like, oh, what if Tua doesn't play or he does play? Jacoby Brissett loves to throw to tight ends. You look at what he did when he was a starter in Indianapolis. He would pepper Jack Doyle and Eric Ebron. Those were the leading receivers on that team. So Gesicki is in a great spot.
Yeah, I think he still had like 33 targets, too, in the past like 3 or 4 games with Brissett. Slated Proof Pick. I need your favorite bet on the DK Sportsbook board for Baltimore, Miami tonight. Jeffrey.
Man, let's get a little bit crazy. Let's go to the player parlays again. Let's just end this segment on a high note. Mike Gesicki and Mark Andrews over 100 yards receiving each, plus 2,500. Defenses aren't good. This is definitely a spot where the tight ends could get off. Those are big odds, man. I like it.
Okay, Pierce, what do you like?
Well, this might sound crazy too, but I like the Dolphins and the points. The Ravens are not that good. They've covered the spread 3 times against the Chargers, and that's a game where the sportsbook thought the Chargers were good. We've seen they're not really that good. They covered against the Broncos. The Broncos aren't really that good. They covered against the Chiefs. Hey, guess what? The Chiefs aren't that good either. Again, if you look at the Indianapolis game, what were the Ravens doing in the first half? Terrible. They didn't come back until the prevent defense came out. Last week, they looked terrible against the Vikings. Didn't come back until the prevent defense came out. If Miami could just play defense for 4 quarters, they cover this spread.
That's a lot, though, asking Miami to play defense for 4 quarters. Alan, here's Slated Brubeck, your best bet tonight.
By the way, people in my 30-team deep didn't know who Durham Smythe was, so props to you guys for. If I knew Tua was playing tonight, this would be my best bet. The Miami getting 7.5, but it's unclear at this point. But that's still way too many points for the Ravens and their weak defense laying on the road. I'm going to take Miami, and I like the score to be around 24-23. Ravens win this one.
All right, Miami 1-4 ATS in its last 5 Thursday games, guys. One NFL segment down. We got one more to go here. We're going to take a gander at some main slate spreads and totals with Pierce and Allen. Jeff, stay right there because we are going to talk some sticky puck with you right after this quick break. November 11th and the NHL is gifting us an 11-game slate, and we have 2 dudes here to help choose between the top fantasy options available on DraftKings. DK contributor Jeff Warwick and NHL.com and Fantasy on Ice podcast host Rob Reese. Good to have you back, dudes. Starting in the middle of the ice, who was your favorite center in DFS tonight, Rob?
I like Nico Hischier of the New Jersey Devils. He's actually a nice little bounce-back candidate right now with 5 points and 13 shots on goal in his past 5 games. He's obviously elevated to that top line with Jack Hughes still nursing an injury. So go with Nico Hischier as your center choice this evening.
Who are you going with your center choice this evening, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll go a little bit balanced here, too. Pierre-Luc Dubois, the Winnipeg Jets, obviously getting top-line minutes now. The Jets have a much more balanced attack. They're getting healthier up front, but Dubois – basically setting a career high for goal rate right now, bouncing back with a point per game session, and his shot rate is up. Everything is looking good. Have a pretty good matchup here against the San Jose Sharks, who really still, they've started the year nicely, but they still have one of the weaker goaltending duos in the league. It's a good spot for him. I mean, all the Jets guys look underpriced tonight.
On the wings and things department, though, Jeff, who was your top play? Couple dudes north of $9,000. You want one of them?
No, I mean, look, I do want to go elite, but I'm going to go down to Mikko Rantanen here at 8,100. I mean, I think a couple things here are just too good. I mean, obviously, Nate McKinnon out, but that's fine. I mean, I think Rantanen just probably picks up his shot production a little bit. And you look at things like Corsi 4 rating and a couple other advanced stats. I mean, Rantanen rates out better than most of the players on the slate, or at the very least right up there with Alex Ovechkin. You've got a really positive matchup here, too, with Vancouver. Don't defend against the wing position well. Don't really defend against anything well. So I think Mikko Rantanen here, again, Colorado at home. This is still a quality team, good power play. I think Rantanen is the guy you pay up for because you're kind of paying down. I mean, I think you've got a couple guys who in the 9K range, just a little bit overpriced here. So I really like Rantanen at 8,100.
All right, Rob, hook me up with your winger.
Yeah, I'm breaking out the wallet here. Probably the most expensive on the slate, but I'm going with Ovi. I mean, how could you not roster Alex Ovechkin right now? I think in DFS, you have to spend up for him. He's got 3 multi-point games in his past 5. That's 8 points over that span, and he leads the NHL with 60 shots on goal so far. So we're seeing a vintage season from the Grade 8. I like the Washington Capitals a lot. They are banged up. but on the road in Detroit, still a favorable matchup for that team.
Yeah, man, $9,300. Only player more expensive is Connor McDavid at $9,400 there. Contrary to Jeff's unpopular belief, defensemen are people too. So who are you targeting at the blue line, Rob?
All right, so my guy tonight is Alex Pietrangelo for the Vegas Golden Knights. He really started out the season quite slowly this year, but now on a 4-game point streak, totaling 6 points, that's 3 goals, 3 assists, and some category coverage with 15 shots on goal and 7 blocks. So even if Pietrangelo doesn't get on the scoreboard tonight, you know you're getting some shots, you know you're getting some blocks. It's a good safety net for that player.
Ulrich, this is when you shine on the blue line, man.
I mean, let's not give these guys too much credit, but sure, they're involved in our fantasy lineups. I think Thomas Chabot at 6,300 is actually a very nice play tonight. Good matchup, in my opinion, against LA. Not a great penalty kill at all. I know they've been playing well, but Chabot is averaging almost 5 block shots plus shots on goal per game. It's well above his long-term form. This guy just plays a ton of minutes. I think the Ottawa penalty kill could be, or power play, could be something you could look to stack tonight. At the very least, Chabot is just so productive in those tertiary stats. I mean, it's just a really safe floor. He's not overly expensive. I like targeting him here.
Okay, so who do you want to target then for a value play, Jeff? Someone who may be a little cheaper but going to deliver the goods.
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, if we can go like any direction, any position, I mean, I sort of like just staying with the defenseman here. Colton Parayko there at 5,000. I mean, taking on the Nashville Predators, getting a little bit more opportunity with Torey Krugel. This is a very productive defenseman as well. And someone, I mean, I like just as much as Chabot there on the back end. So a player who, again, getting a little bit more power play exposure, blocks a lot of shots. He's averaging over 4 block shots plus shots on goal per game. Got a pretty good matchup against the Predators. Don't really rate out well in special teams. I think Parayko there at 5,000 is definitely like a kind of value you should have your eye on.
All right, Rob, which value play do you have your eye on?
Yeah, I'm stacking up the Washington Capitals tonight, so I'm going to go with Connor McMichael. He's kind of a dark horse rookie this year. Didn't get a lot of production nor ice time early in the season, but now with the myriad of injuries that team has, he's actually riding a 3-game point streak very quietly, has 9 shots in his past 4 games, and I think Coach Laviolette's going to continue to trend that player's ice time up, and up as he continues to produce. So with a rock-bottom price, get Connor McMichael in the lineup.
And Rob, I'm not too sure how many goalies are locked in right now, but is there a matchup that you would be targeting?
I don't love the slate for goalies tonight. The only one that I think you can keep going back to this year is John Gibson of the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, again, you're going to have to break out the wallet here, but I would spend down at other positions like defense and like wing. If Gibson's going to start tonight, he's really already playing himself into the Vezina Trophy race. He kind of starts like this every year. And with the Ducks right now, I mean, Troy Terry's ripping it up on a point streak. So they definitely have the goal support. If Gibson starts, I think you're going to get your bang for the buck, even if it is a higher price tag.
All right, Jeff, what do you think about this slate for goalies?
I mean, I think it's absolutely fine to pay up for Connor Hellebuyck tonight. I mean, they're the second biggest favorites, or they're in the top 3 favorites. The Winnipeg Jets are, just in terms of the betting odds. So that's always nice to see. Again, going up against the San Jose Sharks, they had a nice win their last time out, but they're on a road trip here. And again, their goaltending can kind of collapse at any point. Winnipeg's getting healthier. I think that's where I would go if I was paying up. I do kind of like Matt Murray, though. Coming off a really solid game against the Bruins. Yeah, he lost, but he's getting healthier. Again, we basically have a pick'em game here with the Senators and the Kings. Senators, like, very, very slight home underdogs. But, I kind of agree with Rob here. Like, I don't really love the slate for goaltending, so why not pay down? Take a guy who's probably not going to be very popular at all in Matt Murray because he hasn't played that well, but he did show something his last time out. And I think Ottawa's very live to win that game. LA also on a big road trip. So give me Matt Murray as a value, and then Connor Hellebuyck as a pay-up option.
All right, you two are absolutely fantastic. You are both free to go. NBA Pick and Roll is coming up right after another thrilling edition of NFL High or Low. All right, back to the NFL we go. Are the following odds too high, so too long, or too low, so too short? And here to answer that question, DraftKings contributors Kenny Ducey. Good to see you this morning, dude. Pierce Dietrich is back, and so is RotoWire's Alan Seslowski. Tampa Bay on the road against Washington. 9.5-point favorites right now. Tom Brady coming off a bye. He's angry with the way the last game ended, and he's facing a team that's 2-6. So are the spread too high or too low, Kenny?
Yeah, look, I think that there's a little bit of concern here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just don't think that they've really looked as sharp over the last, the larger body of work, maybe 3 or 4 games. And, obviously coming off a loss, coming off a bye, I think Tom Brady is always a sure bet in these games. But here's the one thing about the Washington football team. They've shown the ability to stop the run, and I think that could throw a wrench in Tampa Bay's game plan. They've leaned on the run really dating back to the middle of last year pretty heavily when things didn't go so well. I know that there's something to be said for how well this team played in the secondary last year. We haven't seen it so far this year, but I don't know. I just think that this is a lot of points to hang on a team that really competed very well with Tampa Bay last year in the postseason and has shown a little bit of promise on the offensive end. And now we know that they can stop the run as well. They've done a great job of that this year. I could see things getting close, especially if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers try to pull away late, maybe try to run some clock and all of a sudden run into some roadblocks. Can't get the ball to move, and Washington just comes and maybe backdoors this thing.
Oh, man. Alan, opposing quarterbacks have a rating north of 107 against Washington this season. I feel like Tom Brady can work with that.
Yeah, Kenny made a really great point about the only team to show Tampa Bay any resistance was the Washington football team, and it was a better version of Tampa Bay last year. So I see this being a close game. When you're at home getting 9+ points, I think the DK Sportsbook dropped it to 9. People are on this a little bit. I still like it at 9. Obviously, I liked it a little better at 9.5. Washington, I like Tyler Heineke. He's a great scrambler. He keeps the play alive. I think that they can get loose for a couple. I'm taking Washington tonight all day.
Okay, which side, I guess, do you fall on here, Pierce?
Last time I checked, it's week 10. Why are we talking about last season and what Washington was doing last season? We know what they're doing this season. We've got a pretty good sample size, a good body of work. Yes, they're decent against the run, but they're terrible against the pass. And I've been saying on here all season that, hey, Tampa, they should run, but they're glad and more willing to just keep passing. And you're going to be able to pass against Washington. And, oh, by the way, Washington's offense, how are they going to keep up? Taylor Heineke can't get it done. We have seen enough from him. We've seen him throw bad passes. We've seen his receivers not catching the ball. They don't have the weapons. They haven't covered in the last 3 games. I just don't believe in Washington at all, and I'm not going to overreact to Tampa not. Look, we have this bar set incredibly high. If Tampa's not the best team ever, we say, oh, well, they're not that good. Yeah. They're still pretty good. They can't be perfect every week, and they're going to score enough points to cover this.
Yeah, last place team in the NFC East. And that defense has surprisingly fallen off a cliff, as you have mentioned, Pierce. Cowboys, speaking of the NFC East, coming off a terrible loss, hosting the Falcons. The over-under there is set at 54.5 on the DK Sportsbook. Yep, still there as we speak. And games at Jerry World this year averaged 59 points, but Atlantic games have only averaged 49. So we're going to meet in the middle here, and we like 54.5, Alan?
Yeah, I don't know if Dak was just a little rusty last week or if he's still playing hurt. And if he's still a little dinged up, they could go to a little bit more running game. And then I want to see if Tyron Smith plays. I'm a little concerned about this line. I think that it's going to be a popular narrative to go over, that the Cowboys are just writing that off as a one game. But I think that pushes the line up artificially a little bit. I like the under as a contrarian play tonight. On Sunday, when the Cowboys play.
No, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Pierce, how do you feel about 54.5 for a total?
Yeah, it's too many points. And Alan brings up a good point that we don't talk enough about here is the offensive line. If you look at what the Cowboys did last season and how bad they struggled, yes, Dak being gone was a big problem, but their entire offensive line was out for the entire season last year, basically. And this year they've been healthy so far, and we've seen a marketed improvement in that team in the way that they play, not just passing, but also on the ground. So if there's issues with the offensive line, then you've got to think that they're not going to score very many points. And on the other side, Atlanta is not very good. They have played an easy, soft schedule. And yes, they won last week against the Saints, and they put up some points, but really it was 3 drives and a deep pass at the end of the game. Everything else was 3 and outs. And I know that the Cowboys allow opposing teams to get some points, had plenty of shootouts last season, but I do not have much faith in this Falcons offense at all when they play a halfway decent team.
Dallas and its opponents have combined to score more than 54.5 points in 5 of 8 games this season. Do they do it this week?
Yeah, this is too high of a number. I think that I think that we have to talk about the Dallas Cowboys offense, right? You know, they didn't show up last week, but we haven't talked at all in this segment about how good this Dallas defense is, right? They're 7th in DVOA. They've had a great season. They had one bad game, and now are ready to say that this game's going to go over this ridiculous total. I think the Falcons might score 7 points in this game, maybe 10 if they're lucky. I haven't seen anything out of this offense, especially now without Calvin Ridley. This Cowboys defense is legit, and they got stunned by the Denver Broncos, and we have to give Denver props for that. But I just don't see, with the talent that we've seen on this team, them just doing this again, them laying over again, laying an egg, especially against a Falcons offense that's probably worse than the Denver Broncos offense, if we're being honest. So, yeah, look, I think that the Cowboys offense, I don't really care if they're back, if they're not back. We know the Falcons defense stinks. They could win this 40-7, and this game still goes under, and I think that's what happens.
The Jaguars, for whatever reason here, are double-digit underdogs again, this time against the Colts. 10 points. A little too generous for the Jags coming off a huge upset here, Pierce?
Let's see if I can get in the good graces of Emerson Locke. Number 1, I'm going to support the Jags here.
Yes.
Rule number 2, Google up some trends, and that'll definitely get Emerson on your side. The under is 7-1 the last 8 times that the Jags have been underdogs. And when you're not scoring a lot of points from both teams, it's very hard to cover a double-digit spread. But let's lay on some more Jacksonville love.
Yeah.
They've covered 3 of the last 5 games.
Yes.
Impressive. And then you look at the other 2. One of those losses was a game that they were in contention with against Tennessee, and a touchdown that Trevor Lawrence had got called back, and the game completely changed when the refs overturned that touchdown. And then against Seattle, they got off to a slow start. They were down several touchdowns early. They had to be one-dimensional, lean on the pass. They had a ton of penalties in that game. Jacksonville just can't do that. Jacksonville can't commit a bunch of penalties and get down early and compete. They've been a halfway decent team over the last 5 games. I think that they're going to cover here. Dare we look at the money line?
Okay, all right. I like where your head's at here, Pierce. Kenny, what do you think? I know the Colts have Jonathan Taylor, but the Jags, they could stop the run, averaging, 103 yards per game and giving up, coming off a big upset. You got to feel good.
Yeah, I'm torn on this game because I still don't know if James Robinson's going to play, and I think that that's going to make a big impact on this game, right? If James Robinson plays, then I'm sort of with Pierce and with you, right? And with all the Jacksonville Jaguars faithful, because, look, we saw the Colts play the Jets, right? We all had to watch the Jets on primetime. And what was the thing that was so apparent about that game? The Indianapolis Colts could not play a lick of defense. So now we're going to see them against a Jacksonville Jaguars offense that, while they're not maybe quite up to par with the Jets, they certainly still be able to score some points. And if that happens, this Colts offense was gifted some points by the New York Jets defense. They could not stop the run whatsoever. Their front 7 just didn't show up for that game. The Jacksonville Jaguars front 7, meanwhile, last week we saw them penetrate this Bills offensive line. The Bills offensive line was able to give Josh Allen no time to throw the football. And if the Jacksonville Jaguars defense can come anywhere close to replicating that, I think that they can definitely put a scare into the Colts. Carson Wentz, we know he's been very skittish under pressure with the football. They can cover this spread, but I'm still going to wait to see if they're going to have their healthy running back in it.
Okay, Alan, I know the Colts enter this game 5-1 ATS over their last 6, but we all know it's going to be 5-2 after this week because the Jags will cover, right?
No. The Jaguars' 2 best wide receivers are Jamal Agnew and Dan Arnold.
Yeah.
Those are their premier pass catchers. Now, I love both of those guys. I have them both in my fantasy leagues, and they're holding the line for me. But the Jaguars did pull up the stunning upset last week, but the Colts are built to bully weak teams like this with that running game and a decent defense. I'm laying the wood. I'm happy to do it.
Okay, well, we'll keep it in the AFC South, since that is the elite division in the NFL, and the Titans showing that they can compete with the top teams without Derrick Henry like last week, but only favored now by 2.5 points against the Saints this week. Is that spread too high or too low, Alan?
I think the obvious here is that with the Saints quarterback situation, that the Titans should be a heavier favorite. I mean, they're on quite a roll. They've beaten up all of the good teams, what we thought were good teams in the AFC, and then Of course, they lose to the Jets, so, welcome to 2021 NFL. I like the Titans here. They obviously should be about a 4.5, 5-point spread. Even without Derrick Henry, the running game is still going to be competent. Obviously, it's not going to be what it once was, but I like the Titans here to roll. It's certainly to cover the 3-point spread.
Kenny, why does this feel like it's way too low, way too short of a spread?
Because it is, Emerson. Look, the Saints defense is really what's been going well for them all season long, right? This is the reason why the Saints have been winning football games. It hasn't been because of Jameis Winston. It's been because of, guys like Cam Jordan who just have absolutely been monsters on the other side of the football. They've allowed 27 points in each of their last 2 games. I know that the Buccaneers have a pretty good offense, but I don't think the Falcons are really a great offensive team. A team that the Saints, one of the elite defenses in the NFL, should be allowing 27 points to. So now you go to this game against the Tennessee Titans. We saw that their offense is just fine against a pretty good defense in the Los Angeles Rams, right? They can throw the football. And I know that there's been a lot of turnover on that end. They lost Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith. But Ryan Tannehill has proven himself, right, by now, over the last 2 years, that he's a good quarterback. And this team is a good offensive team because they have good play calling. They have good personnel. They have a good line. So they can definitely score on this Saints defense. And I think that that's all we need to see, because we know that Trevor Siemian probably not going to be able to get it done on the offensive side of the football, even though the Titans have struggled on defense this year. They've looked better of late. And I think that ultimately, if you're going to just try to pick one side to outscore the other, it's going to be the Titans. I don't think that the Derrick Henry injury has nearly the impact as the odds makers have made it out to be over the last 2 weeks. And I think that next week we're going to start to see the Tennessee Titans get a little more respected. This is one of the 3 best teams in football right now.
I mean, Pierce, I know you're a trends guy. 1-4 ATS is a favorite. We're talking about the Saints here. They're kind of a crazy team to pick. And hit 3-0 ATS as an underdog. That's got to be frustrating for bettors.
Who cares about the bettors? I'm more frustrated with these guys saying this line's too low. It's too high. Are we watching the same Titans games? Am I taking crazy pills? The Bills just were inches away from winning that game. Josh Allen can't get into the end zone, all right? The Titans the next week against the Colts. Carson Wentz throws a terrible interception, and the Titans win. Deja vu, the same thing happens again with Matthew Stafford. That offense did not look good last week, Kenny. Tennessee was gifted that game, and a lot of it had to do with one of the bright spots that Tennessee does have is their defensive line. Their offensive line plays really well, but the defensive line is playing really well. It's underrated, and it's making up for a susceptible secondary with the pass rush. The Rams have one of the best offensive lines in football, but last week they allowed a 22% pass rate, 5 sacks. We saw that interception for a touchdown early in the game that put the Rams in jail. Sacks destroy drives, 5 sacks. That's 5 drives pretty much ended right there. So that explains, why Tennessee just keeps squeaking out these wins. New Orleans is not going to try to pass the ball against them. They're going to be able to run, and that's all they're going to do. And that was probably the mistake for the Rams last week, was trying to pass too much. The Saints are going to go out, run with Kamara, run with Ingram, and Tennessee does not have a good run defense. So this thing's too high.
Okay, we talked a little bit about Thursday Night Football earlier in the show. Let's focus on some Sunday Night Football. Chiefs and the Raiders, big AFC West showdown. Over-under right now is set at 51.5 points. Both teams coming off underwhelming offensive performances. Dare I say this is too high of a total, Pierce?
Yes, it's too high, but not really from the Raiders side. Derek Carr, he played fine last week, had a couple interceptions. It's going to happen. Nobody's perfect. Tom Brady doesn't have perfect games either. Derek Carr will be fine against this defense, and the Raiders should be able to move the ball and score points. But the question is, what we've been talking about, it's Kansas City. Can this offense score? We know the defense is bad, but the offense, as we've been saying on here for the last, month and a half, the offense is broken. They've got real issues. They're not covering spreads. They're not beating anyone. I have real concerns. I know that the Raiders' defense isn't that good, but you look at what they did last week. Kansas City had fewer passing yards, fewer rushing yards, fewer time possession than Green Bay. They scored 13 points on Green Bay. That was the Jordan Love Green Bay Packers. What more do they need to show you? I don't think Kansas City is going to score enough points for this thing to go over. This number is too high.
But Alan, Patrick Mahomes, he's regained that turnover-free confidence.
Yeah, the Chiefs, they might flip the switch one of these days and go back to being the team that we saw over the last few years. But as my colleague Chris Liss at RotoWire said, it's not up to me to bet on it. It's up to them to do it. I like the Raiders' money line here, and I think the number's right on. We're predicting the score over at RotoWire to be 27-24, so that's right on the number. I'd stay away from the total. It sounds about right, but I like the Raiders' money line.
Young Kenneth We had Mr. Carr kind of falling back down to earth, right? Hitting a little funk in New York, in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, this is my job now to be Pierce Dietrich, right? Have you seen these teams, guys? Have you watched these teams play football? These are terrible football teams. The Las Vegas Raiders, they allowed 110 yards to Daniel Jones last week. That was okay, but then they allowed 100 yards on their ground to someone named Devontae Booker. I didn't actually have to look at my phone. Just wanted to do that for effect. Look, I do think that on the other side of the football, the Kansas City Chiefs have won 2 games in a row, and with those wins, I've actually gotten less and less confident in Patrick Mahomes. I mean, some of the throws that he was missing, we talk about the Chiefs missing those big chunk plays, right? They haven't had those chunk plays this year that they had last year. It's because of Patrick Mahomes. It's not because Tyreek Hill's not getting open. He's just being missed by 10 yards on these throws. I mean, Patrick Mahomes there's something clearly wrong with him. Maybe his kid's keeping him up at night and he's losing sleep. I don't know what it is. He's a new father. But look, whatever the reason, I can't trust this offense to score, especially against the Raiders defense looked halfway decent last week. And this Raiders offense, I mean, Derek Carr's throwing picks to Xavier McKinney, one of the worst defenses in football, the New York Giants. He got absolutely owned by these guys. So, no, I don't think that despite the fact that we have a bad defense with the Chiefs, that bad offense certainly counteracts it. And I don't think this game goes over 45 points, let alone whatever the number is, 51.5.
Your Pierce Dietrich impression was spot on. He has come on here multiple times this week and said, have you watched this team? These are bad football teams.
Clearly not a Jeremy McNichols fan, are you there, Pierce?
No. We've talked about enough bad running backs on here, haven't we?
Yeah, we certainly have.
Booker just now, yeah.
All right, guys, that's it. Appreciate y'all hanging out. Alan, good having you part of the show. You are one of us now, so congratulations to that. We will help all of you guys and gals build your NBA lineups. Kenny, you're part of that segment too, so please hang out, all right? All right, everybody, last block of the show, and it's going to be a very, very positive one. I can absolutely feel it. We have only 3 games on the NBA slate tonight, but I still have a lot of questions that I have to ask that I did not write. DraftKings contributors Kenny Ducey, Nick Fryer, RotoWire's Nick Whalen. Good morning, everybody. Who are your favorite DFS and sportsbook plays on this teeny tiny slate? Little NBA pick and roll action. A little light in the guard spot today. So are you picking Donovan Mitchell at 9K, or you want to roll elsewhere, young Kenneth?
Wow, you actually did manage to write him down in record time. I didn't even see you do it, so so well done there. Yeah, look, I'm going to take Reggie Jackson at $6,400. I'm not going to fault you if you take Donovan Mitchell. The Indiana Pacers are by far the worst defense on this 3-game slate. But I think Reggie Jackson's a pretty good deal here when you look at the usage rate above 25% in 3 of his last 4 games. He's averaged 35 minutes in his last 4 games. He had a 51-point game in there, a 51 fantasy point game. I mean, those are really, really good numbers to get at this price. And I know that the Miami Heat defense kind of scares you a little bit, but they haven't been quite up to snuff over the last 4 games or so. They're on that losing slide. So I definitely think that Reggie Jackson should have the ball in his hands, and he's going to see the floor, right, for probably 35 minutes again. Why not fire him up here at $6,400 on a short slate? Could be a little interesting contrarian play as well, considering the Heat known to be one of the better defenses. Maybe people want to stay away from Reggie Jackson. I don't know, but I like taking him. He's never going to shy away from a shot, that Reggie Jackson.
Oh, Waylon, how about Donovan Mitchell, man? $9,000. You want to drop it on him?
I think this is a fairly fair price for Donovan Mitchell on a small 3-game slate. He's been comfortably over 40 DraftKings points in 5 of his last 6 games. He's got a couple 50-plus point DraftKings points in that sample, almost got to 60 in one of those games. He's now up to 2nd in the NBA in usage rate, just a couple of tenths of a percentage point behind Luka Doncic. So he's essentially leading the league in usage at this point. And like Kenny said, the Pacers are the most appealing defense to target on this slate. So I'm absolutely comfortable paying up for Donovan Mitchell. Wouldn't mind pivoting to Fred VanVleet at 8,400. You're not saving a ton, so ultimately not sure that's worth it. But likely no Pascal Siakam for Toronto tonight, so maybe some of that trickles down to Fred VanVleet. And if you want to go cheap, I kind of like Furkan Korkmaz. He's coming off of that terrible shooting night against Milwaukee, I should say, earlier this week. I think this is a good bounce-back opportunity. I think some people jump off of Korkmaz when they look at that game log.
Frya, what about you, dude?
A lot of my strategy tonight is going to be based on Jimmy Butler. So first of all, to answer your question about Donovan Mitchell, no. Okay. My strategy is going to be based on Jimmy Butler because of his injured ankle from last night. One would think he's not going to play after he missed the entire second half. And that would, of course, impact Tyler Hero, who's at 6.1K tonight, obviously having a good season. Had 27 points last night with Butler out in the second half. And we know that guy's usage gets impacted immensely when Butler goes out. There's another guy, too, who I'll talk about a little bit later that has even more of an impact than Hero. But the other guy I like, too, tonight is Caris LeVert. I know we're talking about how the Jazz, how Mitchell and everything, it's a good spot for him. But Caris LeVert, he also didn't play last night. He's dealing with that back issue. Of course, got to make sure that he is playing tonight because he's questionable right now. But with him, if he is available, then he's rested, unlike the rest of his teammates who are coming off the first half of a back-to-back. So I think those are 2 guys I'd much rather go with than with Mitchell tonight.
Well, Fryer, one of only 2 players who are more expensive on this 3-game NBA slate tonight, so more expensive than Mitchell, is Sabonis, because Embiid is out. So $9,100, is he your pick at center?
No, there are a few guys I think that are better options here. Andre Drummond is, of course, the first guy you think of with Embiid out, but he's at a pretty high price right now. Still, he's producing at that number when Embiid is out. But the other 2 guys I like a little bit more are Rudy Gobert and Bam Adebayo tonight. Adebayo, I was saying, with Jimmy Butler out, he gets a huge usage bump. Actually, our guy Stan Sun was writing this over on DK Live the other day. 10.8 percentage point increase in his usage rate when Jimmy Butler is out. So that is my favorite play tonight. I think Rudy Gobert is another good one as well at 1.1K cheaper. Just with Sabonis, I mean, I know he had a strong showing last time out, and he's had some good games this season. But before his last game, before last night, again, coming off on the second leg of a back-to-back, he was riding a 3-game stretch of sub-40 DK fantasy point performances. So I don't want to go and put my faith in that guy at that price tonight.
All right, Waylon, you want some?
I think I'm staying away from Sabonis. If I'm picking between he and Andre Drummond, I think I would rather roll with Andre Drummond, who has been over 50 DraftKings points in all 3 of the starts that he's made in place of Embiid this season. It's been a virtual lock, and I think the matchup is what really convinces me here. The Raptors really do not have a center who they trust. They've been doing everything they can to not play Chris Boucher. Khem Birch is banged up. He's not going to play. We just received word like 30 seconds ago that Siakam is officially out. He's been their starting center the last 2 games. They had Siakam last night. They were eaten alive by Robert Williams in that game. Andre Drummond against Precious Achiuwa and or Chris Boucher, to me, is a major mismatch. So I think I'll keep riding that hot hand with Andre Drummond. I like the Adebayo call. I do worry a little bit. I wonder if he's going to be listed as questionable. He keeps kind of going on and off the injury report these last few games with some just like general soreness, I think, in that knee. So I wouldn't be shocked if his status, comes into question on the second night of a back-to-back. But if he does play, I think Nick is on the right track with that one, given the usage bump.
Kenny, what you want at center, dude?
I'll go to Andre Drummond at $8,600. One of the most empty calorie guys in the NBA, right? He's not a good player, but he's going to produce for you in the fantasy basketball department. That is exactly what he's done over the last 2 games with back-to-back 50-point outings. You look at a team that he's going to face here in Toronto. They're bottom 10 in restricted area field goal percentage. It's 66.3%. So Drummond's not going to face much resistance down there. The guys talked about some of the injuries that Toronto's dealing with. And, they're 7th in rebounding rate, but Andre Drummond is a very good rebounder. And there's not really a great rebounding discrepancy here on the board, right? If you're looking at center, there's not going to be one clear advantage, a guy going against a terrible rebounding team. This is probably as good as you're going to get here with Drummond. He's going to be on the floor. The usage is going to be up. And Tobias Harris is probably going to be back, or maybe going to be back for Philadelphia, which maybe gives a little bit of a boost to that offense. Maybe gives Drummond a little bit of a relaxation there down low without some of the defense that he might be drawing. So I don't know. I mean, I think that all the things could work out here for Drummond, and he's still kind of too low for my liking.
All right, let's go over to the DK Sportsbook here, guys. Which team are you picking to cover the spread, Kenny? Biggest dog on this 3-game slate would be the Pacers. 10-point dogs against the Jazz. Yay or nay?
No way. It's absolutely going to be my Los Angeles Clippers at -4. This is a great spot for them with or without Jimmy Butler. And Nick mentioned that, Jimmy Butler maybe not playing here because of the way we saw that last game end. It was a back-to-back, so maybe they suit him up. But the thing with this matchup is I really, really do think that the Los Angeles Clippers are just shooting the basketball so well right now. They're 2nd in the league over their last 6 games in three-point percentage at 40.3%. That's because Paul George has really picked things up. Paul George is seeing, all the defense, right? Everyone's focusing their defense on Paul George without Kawhi Leonard and, without some other complementary pieces like Marcus Morris and Serge Ibaka. He's still scoring the basketball. He still has 4 30-point games, and this team is still 2nd in defensive rating. So there's nothing clearly stopping this Clippers team on the other side of the ball. The Miami Heat rely so heavily on scoring in the paint and scoring the restricted area, and the Clippers are in the top 3rd of the league in all of those metrics in terms of field goal percentage allowed inside. So I think that this ultimately works out to be a very good spot for the Clippers at home, where they shot the basketball better last year. And I think that this 3-point shooting should continue, and the defense should continue to suffocate a Miami team that really looks kind of lost on the offensive side right now. And that could even get worse without Jimmy Butler because they haven't had Duncan Robinson yet to save them from 3.
Waylon, you taking a dog to cover?
No, I'm with Kenny on this one. I like the Clippers to win that game outright against Miami, cover 4 points at home. This is a really, really tough back-to-back for Miami. And we've all kind of laid out the factors at play here. Of course, they were in overtime late last night against the Lakers. And as Kenny alluded to, once Jimmy Butler went out of that game, they were relying a lot on really difficult shots from Tyler Hero. And for the most part, that's been a good bet this season because he's been hitting virtually everything. But down the stretch, he went cold in that game. I thought Avery Bradley did a really good job locking him up. And if you have to play a full game without Jimmy Butler, coming in after some of these guys were playing close to 40 minutes on a back-to-back, it's a really tough spot against the Clippers team that even if the Heat had Jimmy Butler, I feel pretty good about them defensively. They've been one of the best defenses in the league so far. Paul George, obviously a great on-ball defender so far, and especially these last few games. I think the Clippers are starting to look a lot like that team that we saw kind of run through the Western Conference, surprisingly, without Kawhi Leonard last year. I think they kind of know who they are right now. Guys like Nick Batum have stepped up really big. He played really, really well against the Blazers earlier this week. And again, really tough spot for Miami on the second night of a back-to-back coming off of an overtime game. So I think this is a great spot for the Clippers.
Freya, talk to me, dude. Which team is covering the spread? You have 6 to choose from tonight.
I mean, 6 to choose from, and my fellow panelists and I are all on the same page. Clippers at -4 tonight. I'm not going to go and belabor the point too much, of course. If Jimmy Butler's out, Paul George has been going off. Whether or not he's in, Paul George is doing well, but obviously Butler being out will make a huge difference in that regard. And the Clippers are riding a 4-game winning streak, and they've won by 11 or more in each of those 4 games. So what's not to like about them tonight?
All right, guys, we have under 90 seconds to go in the show, so very quick here. Which game total bet are you picking tonight, Fryer?
Pacers, Jazz, under 216. It was at under 217 earlier. The under has hit 8 times for both teams this season. Pacers have played 12 games. Jazz have played 11, so easy under for me.
Waylon.
I like that Heat Clippers game to go under 211.5. Clippers have gone under in 6 of 10 so far. That offense has kind of been boom or bust. These are both good defensive teams. And as we laid out, likely no Jimmy Butler here. I think this is one that could be played in the high 90s.
Kenny?
Actually, like the over in that game, I think if Jimmy Butler doesn't play, that's going to force Miami to shoot more threes. They've been one of the 2 happiest teams in basketball. They shoot more threes. The Clippers are shooting well from 3 as well. I think this game go over.
Way to bring that big Nick energy, Mr. Whalen and Fryer. Kenny, great to have you here as well. That's it. That's a show for today. I'll be back tomorrow morning here on this same desk, 11 o'clock Eastern time, which is the same time we started today's show. We have a Thursday edition of the slate at 5 o'clock. Is Reed still on that thing, Producer Drew? Because he's doing the PGA Tour live stuff. I bet he's not. But Kaufman will be there, and we have Madden Sims starting here at high noon. Vikings and Bengals. So get after it, peeps. Adios.